We are back with an award-winning author. She is here to talk about her book, and she's also here to help young women as it relates to teen pregnancy, sexual abuse, and just navigating through life. Now, before we continue on what we were speaking about, I do want to answer some of the questions that was in our first part of our interview. There was a young lady, she came on and she was saying how she just found out she was pregnant and she wanted some advice. And so I was going to start off by giving her some advice. But once again, I haven't had children, but I still know some good advice to kind of give someone. But I really want someone who is experienced to give some advice to a young teenager who has never had a child before. They're in this situation. They may feel ashamed, they may feel scared. Me, I'm going to tell you, number one, drop down to your knees and
Right.
ask God for help, for guidance, for strength, for to lead your steps, because this is going to be a very scary moment for you. That's number one. Number two, you need to allow your entire village to be able to help you. You're going to need help. You need to be open to listening. However, during this time, any negativity, I would say to X them out of your life, because if you are deciding to have this child and to be the best mother you possibly can be, you need to be focused. You need to be sane. You need to be mentally healthy for your child. You need to get ready to be on a straight up nutritional lifestyle, and you have to have peace. You cannot allow people in your life that are going to upset you constantly. That's my advice. And also, if you have any kind of relationship with the father, this is the time right now to talk about what does this look like for you guys? Are you guys staying together? Do you plan on being in the life? Do you plan on helping? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to parent? What would you say, Rated?
So I would suggest the first thing: pray. Ask God to guide you in your everyday life, because I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Being a
Okay.
teen mother is not easy. It's going to be hard, especially if you're doing it on your own. I mean, when I was a teen mother, my kid's father was, very active. However, everyone doesn't have that. Everyone doesn't have a village. I didn't have, I had a village, up, when my kids were little, when my daughter was little. My mother passed away when my daughter was 4 years old.
My
So
condolences
that
to
was
you.
a big part of my, village. It was dismantled, kind of, in a way. So I do want to say, pray. It's not going to be easy. However, your life is not over. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. It's going to be hard, but it's not over. I was a teen mother. I graduated from alternative school a year late, but fast forward to 20 years, 20 years later, I got 3 degrees. I have an associate in health administrative services. I have a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in human resource management. I just received my master's this year in
Yes.
health administration. So I have 3 degrees 20 years later. It took me a minute, but I, got it together. And another thing that I want to touch on, I know in the beginning I said that my children live with their father. And before some of y'all judge, it's not because I'm a crackhead, none of that. I ain't never been no crackhead, none of that. CPS didn't take my children away from me, none of that. That's not the reason. My children stayed with me. My daughter was 14 when she went to live with her father. My son was 8. Now, at first, I was totally against that. I did not want my kids living with my father, because I felt like living with their father, excuse me. I felt like, I'm the mama. I should be taking care of them. I should be doing this. No, 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 no. I was not, happy with that, whatsoever. And, my kids have a stepmother as well.
Yay.
What I will tell, what I will say is this: stop doing what society wants you to do. Just because your kids live with their father full time does not make you less of a mother. Do I pay child support? Absolutely, I do. I pay child support. I don't ever complain about that shit either. And it's
Okay.
okay to, pay child support, because honestly, that was something I was paying when my children lived with me full time. When they lived with me full time, I was paying more than that. I had to buy groceries. The electric bill was up. So, I'm not saying, oh, fuck them kids. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes what I am saying is this. Sometimes the father got more flexibility. Sometimes the father got a better, work schedule to where he can maintain being a full time. When I was a full time parent, at that time before I started working from home, I was working at the hospital from 3:30 to midnight. I was hardly seeing my children. I wasn't able. I think I missed my daughter's, which graduation was that? It was her fifth grade graduation. I had missed that. I wasn't able to be there. My husband was there. I wasn't able to be there. So I was missing out on a lot of moments. And again, I was against my kids living with their father full time. However, just because my kids lived with their father, and they've been with their father for 5 years now. In those 5 years, I can tell you something I've done from 2020 to 2025, and that's including getting 2 degrees within that time frame, writing a book. I've through events, I've produced albums. I didn't drop two different albums, basically getting my life together. I don't have my kids living with their father to go, shake ass, turn up. I hardly go out, that's not why. And somebody broke something down to me. They were like, somebody told me this. They said, Megan, let them kids be with their daddy. This is the time for you to be getting everything you were supposed to do when you were 17. You supposed to be doing it now. So go to school, finish school, write that book, go travel,
Mhm.
get your life together. So to those mothers who are overwhelmed with motherhood, it's okay to let them kids, especially if you have a son, and he's at, the teenage stage. It's okay to just say, hey, let the daddy be the full time parent. You were the full time parent, let the daddy do it.
And I have to agree with you. I don't want you to ever think that allowing your children to go with their father is a lack of motherhood on your behalf. I think that society is so used to the children always being with the mother, and when the mother and the father isn't together, that if the children are not with the mother, something is wrong with the mother. They have
Right.
forgot that this is a two parent needed job, okay?
Yes.
And they have forgot that at the end of the day, children also need to be with their fathers. And there are fathers who love taking on the responsibility. There are fathers who love sharing that and will be happy to help out when the mother is too busy doing other things that has something to do with enlightening her life, helping the children be better. That is what parenthood is about. I believe that it is imperative, especially for boys, to go be with their father, because a lot of times us as women, we can't teach boys how to be men. We can try. We have tried many times before, and sometimes it comes out wonderful. But a lot of times we're missing some pieces and some talk and some knowledge and some wisdom that only a father can give. And so, Megan, I have to give you kudos for being strong enough to understand, hey, listen, I need some help. I cannot do this all by myself. And I did not make these children by myself. And therefore, I need your help. And for your ex to step up and say, Megan, I got you. They my kids
He
too.
wanted them. He wanted, the kids to live with him. And at first, I was like, no, me and him, we were going back and forth about that. And then my children did stay with them. And then fast forward 2 years later, because we was, tussling back and forth. I was like, you know what? My kids, they're in a different school system. Why? They're adjusted. Let them stay with their daddy. And I mean, honestly, at first, I was upset with my kid's father because he wanted the children to live with him. But now I would thank him because, within those 5 years, I was able to get my life together because I didn't
And as long
understand it.
as you are still an active mother, then there's no harm, no foul. I think that this is really, you are blessed to be able to have a father that's in his child's life and wants to be there. So many women are doing it by themselves. And like I said, they make it seem like it looks easy, but they're struggling. They're going through hard times, even though they're handling it. So to be a person that has a father that's going to be there, that's a blessing.
And
So
then
don't
think,
allow that to make you feel no type of way. That's a blessing. So start to talk more about that. Don't be
right.
embarrassed about that.
Because then that's what my husband had told me. He was like, I had did a Kid L interview, and I said I pay child support, and I thought, women were gonna look at me. But for the most part, most of those comments was like, you had some people was like, oh, she had to be out there for her to be on child support. No. But for most of the comments, they was like, "Hey, she a real one. Hey, maybe I need to pay child support and let my kid's father be a
But
full
why
time
wouldn't
parent."
you pay child support if the mother only had the kids, right? If the
Right, and
mother
I don't
only had
complain
the
about
kids,
it.
the father would have to pay child support. So if the father has kids, why wouldn't the mother pay child support? At the end of the day, they're your children. How can you be upset about paying child support on children that you had that you have to take care of? I mean, people aren't thinking logically when you make these statements.
He paid child support when I had the children, full time. So I was like, okay. And then it's times where my son might call me and need extra. I might if my kid's father say, hey, can you help me with such and such? I'm not gonna say, well, I pay child support. Fuck you. No, I'm like, okay, if I got it, I'm a help you. I'm a grown person about it. And I
Yeah.
remember a dude told me one time, he was like, man, you got more heart than a lot of these niggas. So
Wow.
I mean,
Because even though this situation seems a bit unorthodox, it's not as common as what we see. It works. And I always tell people that you have to do what works best for you and your family. People are always going to have something to say, especially when you tell the internet, when you invite the internet into your business by going on podcasts, by talking to people about your life. People are going to have things to say, but as long as you stay solid, you know what you're doing is helping your children. You're there for your children. You and your ex, y'all have your baby daddy, the father of your children, y'all have a conversation, y'all have a bond, y'all able to do this together. It doesn't matter what anyone else says or what anyone else thinks. As long as your children are taken care of, order in the court.
right. Right. And you know what? And then, let's talk about that. I mean, dudes anybody who complain about child support, you got to understand something. Look, this could have been avoided, right? This could have been avoided. And it goes back to, sex is more than a penis going inside of a vagina, vice versa. It's more than that. This could have been prevented. So I seen a post where it said, if the pussy good, nut in it. Now y'all making
Wow.
posts about that, but then when you do that, you gonna be crying about child support. No,
And
stop
I never understood
procreating.
men like that. I never understood that, there are a lot of good men who, when they make these decisions, they will assume the responsibility. But then you have a lot of men who are immature and they think that sex is just for pleasure. They don't understand that sex is specifically here, of course, to connect, but also to make children. And if you're with a woman and you don't see yourself being with that woman and having children with her, then you should not be nutting in her,
You
no
shouldn't
matter
be.
how good the coochie is.
You shouldn't. If you're not planning on making this woman a wife,
Exactly.
actually, creating that family bond with that woman, you shouldn't be nutting in her. You shouldn't be doing that. Grow up. My husband said something to me that I had never heard no man say to me. Me and my husband, we've been married for almost 11 years. It'd be 11 years, February 13th, of next year. And he said
Yay!
something. Thank you. So when we got married, I was like, I was like, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby. And I'm thinking, my husband don't want to have more children. He don't want, kids with me. And he said something to me that I had never heard. No guy said. He said, baby, he said, I want to have a child with you when we are more financially stable. He said, right now you're making music. At the time I was in school, you in school, you trying to write a book, you trying to do this. This is not the time. He said, I want to have a child when we're more stable, when we're not living in a 3-bedroom townhouse, when we got our own house, when we, more, economically stable. And I never heard a dude say that to me, and he said that. That's wisdom right there. He just felt like we weren't ready.
So let
So
me ask you something. Was this in the past when he said that? Have you guys had children since then?
no.
And if not, here's my other question. You said that you're 36 years old. Our biological clock, they say at this point right now, me and you are both cooked, right? Yes, it's possible for you to have a child, but it's going to be a geriatric birth. How much longer do you plan on waiting?
You know what? I have a feeling that I'm going to end up having another kid. Like, I'm going to be one of those women who have a kid in their late 30s and 40s. I'm going to be a mother who got a, kindergartner, and I'm, in my 40s. So, but you know what? Children keep you young. I love being a mother. So, it's just certain things that I love, like back to school shopping. For some reason, I just love it. Like I love, buying new clothes, buying new shoes. I love Christmas shopping. I just love, having a bond with my kids and just I love being a mother. That's why it was hard for, my children to go with their father. So, that I think about it like, yeah, this gonna be hell if I have a kid in this age, but you know what? It's gonna keep me young. I got a, at home gym. I'm gonna have to work out.
Yeah.
Because I got to be in shape if I'm gonna be an older parent. So, but I'm
So,
excited
other
about it.
question, when I think about this whole scenario that you've just painted to me, my question to you is if you did decide to have a child by your husband and your other children are with their father, do you think that they would feel some type of way about being with their father, but now you have a child in the household that you're able to raise and be with every single day, or do you think they'll be okay with that?
You know what? I asked my kids, I asked my son, how would you feel if, I had, another baby? And he didn't say nothing like, oh, how would, he never thought about it like that. What he told me was, he was like, Mom, we older. He was like, that's ghetto. He's so silly. He was like, that's ghetto because, I'm 13, and the baby gonna be newborn. And he was like, that's ghetto. But he was like, at the same time, he was like, happy if I did. But
Okay, well, that's good.
his issue was the age gap. So
Okay. Well, we're going to take a turn. The turn is we're going to talk about sexual abuse and what that looks like. And earlier, when you spoke about your book, I want you to do another one of those excerpts as well, because I want to make sure that we get it now that we have our great Wi Fi going on. I don't want to miss those gems that you dropped. But when we talk about sexual abuse is not always what we think it is, where it's like, someone is taking the coochie, right? Someone has
right,
taken the coochie. Sometimes sexual abuse can be manipulation. Sometimes sexual
right,
abuse could be those situations where you talked about where an older man has sought out a younger woman who may be in high school. And even though she thinks that, she chose him or she thinks that she's getting something out of it, she doesn't understand that she's really a victim of sexual abuse. And I want to talk about that. When R. Kelly went to jail, there were so many men on the internet who had so much to say about how he is wrong. It couldn't have been my daughter. I would have did this, and that. And a lot of those people, the girls, the young girls, were coming out against them, saying, "Hey, you're talking all of this shit about R. Kelly, calling him a pedophile, but it was you that used to pick me up when I was in the 10th grade and you was 21 and 25. It was you who used to talk to my girlfriend down the street and you was 30 years old and you had a wife. You participated in the same type of activity that R. Kelly did, right? And
right.
then you had some women who were like, listen, I used to get picked up by a grown man all the time. I was fucking a grown man when I was younger, and they seemed to act as if it was no big deal because they agreed to it, and they don't understand that they were typically in a part of sexual abuse. You were being sexually abused. What do you think about these scenarios? And have you been the girl that was in that scenario? Let's talk about it. What's your verdict?
You know what? Honestly, I remember when I went to Catherine Ferguson High School, which Catherine Ferguson was the school where teen mothers went. I was
Okay.
sitting in class, right? 215, they was about, 16. One girl told me, my baby daddy 32. And take my glasses off.
Wow.
32. Then another girl said, my baby daddy 34. And they was talking as if it was normal. And then what's even more disturbing, you have their mothers who allow this type of behavior. Something that really disturbed me was the Naziah Harris case. Now that really disturbed me when they read the text messages of,
Yeah.
Naziah and, Jarvis going back and forth. I seen a lot of women, victim shaming Nasiah. Oh, that girl is fast and all that. What you got to understand is this girl didn't just become this way. This was
Yeah.
a taught behavior. This was grooming. This was manipulation. I'm never going, and that's the problem why this shit keep happening. Victim blaming. That's another the reason why a lot of women are scared to come out because they're afraid of being victim shamed. And we gotta stop this type of behavior. I thought it was, cute to, mess around with, older men and all of that. But looking back at that now, like, oh no. And
Yeah.
it was inspiration to write this book because I've seen, I've seen scenarios. I've never messed around with a, real older guy, but I've seen scenarios where young girls were messing around with older men, and they thought it was cool. The whole, the hood knew about it. Nobody said nothing. They thought the shit was normal. It's not
Yeah.
normal.
And
So
here's the
that was
thing:
my inspiration.
we've all seen this situation. We know people that's been in this situation, but what they don't understand is, regardless if the young girl was fast or she wanted it or whatever the case may be, what is lacking is parenthood. A lot
Right.
of these children who are in this situation, who think that it's okay to deal with an older men, who have been subjected to this type of behavior, they probably don't have a father in the house. The mother is probably working constantly, so she can't keep her eye on her daughter. These type of things is hurting our society. And even if you don't have parents in the household, you still have to have some type of role model around, an auntie, a grandma. In the Jarvis case with the Naziah young lady, she was around aunties and she was around grandmothers who still wasn't paying her no attention.
And
They
they knew
wasn't
about it
parenting
too.
her. They knew about it and they were accepting this. So we can't always neglect the fact that these people have been let down by society a
Right.
lot of times.
And what was disturbing with the Naziah Harris case was the auntie knew about it, but she was upset. It seemed as though she was more upset with Naziah, and not your sick ass boyfriend who doing the shit that he doing to, your niece. And
Exactly.
it disturbs me that we have people who will literally blame an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old child and not this sick motherfucker who's doing this. And
Because
that's
let's talk about it. Those men are definitely sick because there is nothing that a 25, 30-year-old can see in a 15-year-old besides pussy. And as
right,
Dundada said, that's pervert activity. Let's talk about it. Y'all uncles, y'all daddies, y'all brothers that's participating in this shit. If you really love them, you would tell them that this is unacceptable. This is a child. Period, point blank in the end.
right. And that was my inspiration for writing this. And I'm gonna read an excerpt about a woman, who experienced sexual abuse within the family. So this woman is an alcoholic. And another
Okay.
thing, a lot of times alcoholism, substance abuse, it stems from something traumatic. And this was her case. So I'm going to read, what she said. Because she took her daughter to an abortion clinic because she found out her daughter was pregnant. So here's what she said: I had an abortion when I was 15, except I was pregnant by my uncle, not some boy I liked. My uncle had been molesting me for years, and it got worse as I got older.
Wow.
People in the family knew what my uncle was doing to me, and they swept that shit under the rug. They acted as if nothing happened. They still treated him like family. That sick bastard came to all the family barbecues and holiday parties. Everybody just turned a blind eye to what was going on, and they knew. When I married Kenny and we had Junior, I was so happy to be having a boy. When I was pregnant with Kiera, I was so fucking furious. Kenny wanted a girl, but I didn't want to bring a girl into this sick ass world. Every time I look at her, it's a reminder of what I went through. When you look at Kiera, you see those curves. And she's so beautiful. I was built like that at her age and ended up getting fucked by my own family. I
Mm.
didn't want the same shit that happened to me to happen to my daughter. I still don't speak to my family. I never told Kiera any of this stuff. It ain't that easy to talk about, Renee said as a tear came down her cheek.
Let me
So,
tell you something. That is a tragedy when your parents fail to protect you. It is a tragedy. Do you know how many black families sweep this type of shit underneath the rug? And you know what happens? Your great grandmama's been raped by somebody in the family. Her kids been raped by somebody in the family. This shit is a perpetuating cycle. And if you don't get a hold of it, it will continue to happen. And I have somebody in my family where the mother was raped, right? And you would think that after you've been raped you will click in your mind and say, I never want this to happen to my child. I got to be on my P's and Q's when it comes to my child. You have those type of talks with your children. You don't allow them to be around people who you believe are predators, who have been say so to be predators. But then she allowed her children to be around their grandfather who was molesting the children. And even after they found out that the grandfather was molesting the children, they still dealt with the grandfather all the way up until he died. They were crying about the grandfather dying. And I'm like, what kind of shit is this? How do you allow this to happen? How does this happen?
And it's so sad because people be like, oh, that's still your family. And that's part of the fucking problem. That's still your family. Fuck that. If this person is a, pedophile molester, no, fuck him.
He
Fuck him.
should be shunned. He
Fuck
should be
her. Because women
shunned.
do it. You have women who
He
are
should be
pedophiles.
shunned.
Fuck her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's very, tragic. And unfortunately, this is happening in so many families. And that's why I wrote the book, to anyone who doesn't want to read it because it's so much, trauma and it's triggering. I understand that. I get it. I knew it wasn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to keep speaking out about it. I'm going to continue to be a voice for it. I want to get with, different nonprofit organizations such as women's shelters, to donate copies of this book. I want to donate copies to the prison systems so the men and the women's prisons can read this book because it's about resilience. It talks about sexual abuse, but it's about resilience and keep pushing no matter what life throws at you. But yeah, it's very graphic. The last chapter of this book, which is called Stolen Innocence, is the most graphic chapter of the book. So I do want to put that trigger warning out there. I don't even think I could read that, on camera, but
But Megan, it's happening in people's lives. You don't understand. Your book is going to save somebody's life. You may hear a lot of negativity about it because people may not be able to identify with it. But there's a whole slew of people who have been molested and who have been raped, and they can identify with it. And that book is going to change somebody's life. It's going to help them be a better parent. It's going to help them see the signs. It's going to help them learn what to do in these situations. So many people are in this situation right now, and their accuser or their abuser is telling them, if you say something, I'm going to kill you. They need to know, fuck what they talking about. That
right.
is manipulation tactics. You need to go tell somebody immediately. You need to go to the police. Do not be afraid. This is where you need to have strength. This is where you need to step up and be strong, because if you don't, you're going to continue to allow somebody to take your innocence and take your mental health.
Another, scenario I talked about of sexual abuse was a woman who was on drugs, who was basically pimping her daughters out, letting, grown men, have sex with her daughters for, to buy drugs. We have, that form of sexual abuse where, the parents are pimping their daughters out, or
Yeah.
sons. So
They on
that's
that
another
Kris Jenner
form.
shit. They glamorize Kris Jenner, but Kris Jenner, she didn't do nothing but exploit her daughters and turn her daughters into glamorized hoes. I love the Kardashians and I love what they have going on as far as being entrepreneurs, but never forget how it started and never forget what they stand for. These women are glamorized hoes.
Right. And that's what, we see that. I see it on Instagram. I see it on Facebook. I see little 3 year olds dressed like 25 year olds, 30 year olds wearing, belly tops and, extra tight clothes. And I'm like, that's weird to me. You putting your kids, on, you dressing them up like, hoes. That's weird as
Yeah.
hell. I had a teenage daughter and I still, have yet to see my daughter barely wear crop tops. So, that's another, a form of abuse to me. You pimping your daughters out on the internet,
Yeah, because mothers are forgetting to be the parent. They want to be the friend so bad. You cannot give reverence over to your children because they will take advantage of it. You have to always stay an authoritative figure over your children. And what we're seeing today is these mothers, they want to be the friend. This is why they're allowing their children to have weave in their hair, to wear nails, to have lipstick on, wear makeup. They're in the seventh and eighth grade. Some of
right?
these outfits that I've been seeing are horrific. And then you wonder why your daughter is being sought out by grown ass men
Because
because
you
she's
dress
wearing
correctly.
grown ass clothing. We got to
You
do better.
basically you almost just as bad as the pedophile. My daughter is 19 years old And I know her location. I'd be like, look, share your location. I'd be up in my daughter's business because we live in, that's another thing. We're living in a sick, sad world. Domestic violence. I talked about that in abuse. You see what's going on in today's world. Men can't, I ain't gonna say men, they ain't men. These fuck niggas can't take rejection. They can't take a woman leaving them. They gotta kill a woman. They gotta beat a woman up. When I got on the Kid L interview, and I stated, in my past relationship with my kid's father, how I cheated, in a past relationship. And Kid L reshared that clip, like he reshared your clip with the how you said your statement about buffs, which I totally
Yeah.
agree with. I had so many men coming at me, and this is the only relationship I cheated on. I wasn't bragging on it. He should have just showed the whole, when he showed the whole interview, I didn't get as much backlash. I didn't. A lot of guys was like, she a real one, she a real one. I had so many dudes calling me bitches and she fat and she ugly and who
They
is she
went
to
for your
cheat?
appearance. They
They
went
went
straight
for
for
they
attention.
attacked me so
Yeah.
bad. And I'm like, I'm telling my truth. One thing about me, I keep it a buck. You know what I'm saying? My husband, they like, who is her husband? Let's go DM him. DM him about what? What you gonna DM him about? He ain't got no cheating stories on me. He already know this. Oh, no, do a fact check. You need to do a, pussy check on these women. And I got so much, hate and animosity. But again, we living in a world where these dudes can't even take rejection. So I don't expect nothing less. And I'm sorry, I said dudes. These fuck niggas
Yeah.
can't take rejection, and they can't take a woman leaving them. We see it on the news all the time. With women trying to put PPOs on guys and they're getting denied and they're trying to escape. We seen the incident at Henry Ford Hospital where my daughter just happens to work.
Yeah.
We see these incidents all day. I talk about domestic violence in the book. It's just different subjects I want to talk about and bring awareness to.
So, what would you say to a woman who's experienced domestic violence and she feels like that's all she has is this man, and she don't feel like she can get better? What would be your advice to her?
You know what? And the sad truth of that is a lot of women stay in these situations because everyone doesn't have a solid village. When, like I said, when my mother left, when my mother passed away, my village wasn't, my village dismantled. But in a lot of these situations, uh, the reason why these women stay is because of security. They don't have nowhere to go. They don't have no, one to turn to. You know, that's why they stay in these situations. And a lot of these, fuck niggas know that. So, they
Yeah.
continue to do what they do, manipulate, abuse. You know, help is available. There are, resources available, like the National Domestic Violence Hotline that I put in the book. That's available. Their help is available. Turn to God. You can get out of this situation. Trust God, walk away. It
I
can
love that
happen.
your book has not only inspiration and has examples, but it also has resources. That's imperative because we can sit and tell a person all day long what to do and what not to do. But the question is, how are you going to help me? What is it that
Right.
you can do to actually assist me? So, what are some of those places that they can call? Do you know them offhand?
So I have the domestic violence hotline number. And that's another thing. I really feel like there should be more resources for women of abuse because there aren't a lot of resources. And that's why a lot of women stay in these situations. So I am going to put the National Domestic Violence Hotline number.
And we're gonna also tag it here. We're gonna pin it down here once we get it. We're gonna pin it for them to be able to see. And also, if you have any resources for teen mothers, is there places that they can go or reach out to in these situations?
So, you know what? I wanted to get on here and say I want to link up with anyone who wants to help teen mothers because I want to throw events for teen mothers, such as community baby showers. That's what I want to do. So if you know anyone who has nonprofit organizations or anyone who wants to help teen mothers, let's link up. Follow me, rated them on the beat. On my Facebook page. You can follow me on Instagram at I am rated them. Rated them on the beat on Instagram. I really want to connect so we can help teen mothers because there aren't a lot of resources. You used to have schools like Nancy Boykin, Catherine Ferguson, where, they could take their babies to school with them, and there's not a lot of resources like that no more anymore. So, I definitely want to organize more things like that. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799 SAFE. That's SAFE. So that's 1-800-799 SAFE. Safe.
All right, and I do want to give out a couple of resources as well. There are nonprofits like A Girl Like Me Inc. and Detroit Mama Hub, which provide essential and educational support, and the Michigan Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting Program, which is MIAPP, that offers case management and referrals for housing, childcare, and more through local agencies. So if you guys want to know more about these, you can Google them as well. You can also find specialized support like the Pathway Academies for Education and Children's Centers of Wayne County for mental health services and various community centers. So there is help available, and we want to make sure that you guys have those resources so that you can be the best parents and women that you possibly can be.
Absolutely. Also, we will be having an anti-bullying rally, which is September 27th at the Recreation Center, Joseph Walker Recreation Center. That is on 8431 Rosa Parks Boulevard, September 27th from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. I will be a speaker of that. And because I was a victim of bullying, and sexual abuse is a form of bullying. So I will be speaking about that as well. So definitely come out. It's a free event. It's a perfect time to connect. I'm an advocate for bullying because I was one of the girls who was bullied back in the day. I told you I got, teased for having a two-parent household. So, but
So I'm going to give some last words. I'm going to give my verdict on this, and then I'm going to allow you to give your verdict on it and tell where you can be found. So my last words on this is, young ladies, please remember that your body is your temple. Your body is your temple. God gave you something so precious between your legs, and it is not meant to be given out to any and every man. If you can do it right, do it right. Hold your virginity as long as possible until a man comes into your life and chooses you that's God fearing and that wants to make you his wife. If a man is not serious about you, you do not need to be in any situationships. You do not need to be a fling. You do not need to be a side chick. You need to be thinking about being a wife and what that looks like. Okay. That's number one. Number two, you are how you portray yourself in society. Perspective is reality. If you don't want to be looked at as a hoe, you don't want to be looked at as a bitch, you don't want to be looked at as a slut, then number one, you need to talk like a woman. You need to dress like a woman. You need to be like a woman. You need to think like a woman. Nowadays, you guys are showing every inch of your body. You are not leaving anything to the imagination. When you speak like a foul mouth, low life. You don't know the first thing about womanhood. It is imperative that you do the work on yourself right now if you want to attract positivity in your life, if you want to be upheld and be respectable, if you want to bring legacy and bring love and life into your life, and if you don't want to embarrass yourself and embarrass your family. We have to surround ourselves around women that can teach us how to be better women and how to live a better life. And so it starts with us as well. Number three, sex can wait.
it can.
It ain't all of that.
It
Okay,
can
I know
wait.
everybody thinking that sex is this and sex is that, and yes, it does feel good, but it is not worth it at the end of the day. You can hold off, you can wait, and when you find that person that you in love with, that you can see yourself being a wife to, being a mother to the children, then you give yourself. Otherwise, you're going to continue to be baby mamas. You're going to continue to be statistics. You're going to continue to have multiple baby daddies. You got to do better as well. I know that you come from this lifestyle. I know that this may be all you know, but you have a choice to get out of it. And the first thing that you need to do is seek God. Ask Him for help. Ask Him to teach you. Ask Him for discernment. Ask Him for strength and ask Him to lead you in this life. And that's my verdict.
Absolutely, I agree. And remember, one night of pleasure can turn into a lifetime full of pain. So always remember that. And that goes for y'all fellas too. Some of y'all fellas who, like we talked about earlier, if the pussy good, nut in it. Don't do that when you don't think about this. Think about this. If this is not a woman you can see yourself marrying, raising a family with, loving, then don't make her a baby mama. Please don't. And that's just
Please don't.
honesty and vice versa.
That's right. And tell us a little bit more about your book, where we can find it at, where we can find you, and what do you have coming up?
All right. So you can find the Book of Aisha available on Amazon. So this is how you would find the Book of Aisha. So you would type in the Book of Aisha in the search bar, click format, and then click Kindle. And it will pop up, all three formats is currently on sale. If you have the Kindle edition, if you have Kindle Unlimited, excuse me, you can read the Book of Aisha for free. It's available on paperback and it's also available in the hardcover form. This is the hardcover form, and all of them are on sale because I'm running a sale right now because of the 1 year anniversary. And it will be also available on audiobook, narrated by me. Also, the Book of Aisha, and I don't talk enough about this because I'm a producer. The Book of Aisha has a soundtrack available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, all music streaming platforms. It's called the Book of Aisha Original Soundtrack, produced by me. It's a 12 instrumental soundtrack, just straight instrumentals and positive messages. So make sure you check it out. Also, I need followers, y'all. So make sure y'all follow me, rated them on the beat. You can just type in rated them on the beat. I'll pop up. You'll see my cover, my photo of the Fox 2 on Facebook. Follow me on rated them on the beat, aka rated them wrote it on Instagram. And you can follow me on TikTok. I love TikTok at I am rated M. I need followers. And also I do giveaways. So when y'all, read the books, we're gonna come back with the giveaways. I gave away the last giveaway, we gave away Stanley Cups. What else do we give away? We give away a lot of, good prizes for engagement. So
Well, I
definitely
just
check
want to
it
let
out.
you know that confident women don't hate, and therefore I want to give you your flowers right now. I appreciate you for coming on here and giving us wisdom, sharing your book with us, sharing knowledge with us. I also want to tell you that I believe in you. I think that you're going far. I'm proud of all of your accomplishments. I'm so happy to see that resilience has been a part of your life. It looks good on you. I'm always here for you when you want to come back and talk about
Of
any and
course.
everything. And thank you so much for coming to the Verdict Podcast. Also, you guys, make sure to go out and get my comedy special. It is on Amazon. It is called The Verdict. You already know that when the judge is in, the verdict is out. We will be leaving all of that information right down in the comment section, and let us know, what is your verdict on teen pregnancy, sexual abuse? Have you been a part of this? Do you know any more resources that can help people? And do you have any verdicts that can help enhance people's lives? And that's all we have for this week. Next week, we're going to have Coach Dale on here. We're going to be talking about the secrets to marriage, cheating, and so much more.
I'm gonna
Can't
be
wait to
here
see
for
you
that.
guys. Thank you again. I love you and I appreciate you. And have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
night.
Bye,
Order in the
y'all.